Be inspired by the best sales professionals, sales leaders, and coaches in the world of B2B sales. From IT services, medical devices, through to coaching and consulting companies, these principles will help you accelerate your sales performance and growth. Using models from the best-selling book Inspire, Influence, Sell, and award-winning programs from Focus for Growth, you'll have the inside track on the psychology, skills, and systems used by the world's best sales teams. We'll hear from some of the best sales leaders from some of the fastest growing businesses in the world. They don't achieve record-breaking growth by chance. They have a proven sales and leadership approach and a laser focus on growth. You can hear exactly how they do it, one conversation at a time. This is the Inspire Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Lee. Welcome to the Inspire Sales Podcast. This is our first episode where we'll start to interview people from sales, business, and leadership. Today, I'm joined by Gary Lincoln. Gary is somebody who I've known a few years now. I've got a lot of respect for, and he's got some great experience in not only sales, but in business leadership and in relationship management, and he is an accredited coach. So we'll get into that in the episode, but without further ado, let's talk to Gary Lincoln. I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Welcome to the Inspire Sales Podcast, Gary Lincoln. So for anybody who doesn't know Gary, I'm privileged actually to call Gary not only a business professional and someone in my network, but also a close friend. And Gary is the group director of a company called TXM Group, which he'll tell us a bit more about shortly. But Gary is also an accredited executive coach. He trained with the same company I did, or the Association of Executive Coaching here in the UK. And I've known Gary for probably 2, maybe even 3 years now. And he's got some great experience. So I'll let Gary introduce himself and bring him onto the podcast. But Gary, first of all, thanks so much for your time today. And I'd love for you to just give us a quick intro, if you wouldn't mind, quick introduction to yourself.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Justin, for that intro. Far too kind. And to be fair, I think you've elevated our relationship far too quickly in terms of our good friends. However, thank you very much for that intro. Yeah, I'm Gary Lincoln. I'm one of the group directors of TXM. The TXM Group, who are a recruitment business and sort of human factors business based in the UK, headquartered in Milton Keynes, with offices in Australia, America, Dubai, and up and down the UK. So we construct 3 pillars: engineering, technology, and healthcare. Those are our 3 pillars into the human factors recruitment model as well.
I like the term human factors, Gary. I like human factors as part of recruitment. I think often recruitment can almost be seen as just a process and joining people with jobs, but actually I like the idea of human factors. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so the human factors part is because recruitment ultimately is like a game of Snap, really. You get a job spec, you get a CV, and you put them together, really. However, that's as simple terms of recruitment. However, the inconsistency of that is that we deal with people, and we have to take in consideration people's wants, needs, desires, career path, what they've gone through previously, and because we recently, as we all know, just come out of a pandemic, lots of people's lives changing during that period of time, that we have to take in consideration through that. So actually, recruitment is about human to human process. It's not a technology to technology process, it's human to human process. And I think that gets easily forgotten in today's world, where we're trying to shortcut certain processes through AI, etc., technology, but we need to focus on the person in front of us.
Yeah, and it's so important that it's not exclusively recruitment, as we all know. Sales is very similar, isn't it? It's really easy to get drawn by numbers, activities, and start to focus on the wrong things, when actually what makes a really valuable sales process and a buying experience for a customer is that human to human interaction. People are people. We're people first, right? Our salespeople are people. Our customers are people. Your recruitment candidates are people. The companies that want to, get that talent on board, they're people that are looking to do that. It's so easy to overlook that and just think it's all either, as you say, tech or numbers or posts and positions. Keeping the people at the heart of it is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you're right. And sales, and we've all been around the sales function for far too many years. And it is about numbers. Let's not get away with it, because we all need to generate a profit.
Yes.
However, and the old saying, that people do buy for people, that is so true. People don't buy from technology. People buy from people. And we're building personal relationships. And I'm a firm believer you can't build personal relationships over tech. You can't do it over Zoom properly. You can't do it over WhatsApp. You can't do it over computers. You have to get personal with that individual, understand what their wants, needs, desires, a bit about their family, etc., etc. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions about LinkedIn, if you think about it.
Yeah.
People say that it's turned a bit more like Facebook. Well, maybe it has, because I think during the pandemic, people went to LinkedIn to be that networking forum and that outreach to people when they couldn't do it because they're stuck in their own houses. So people, we're human beings. We thrive on human connections.
Yeah.
And the sales process is that people do buy from people. And if you happen to get on well with that person, that also could be the client or customer or whatever, even more power to you, because it's brilliant.
Yeah, and you know, you're really good with people, Gary, right? I know it's something that you've worked at, right? And I know from conversations we have, you invest a lot of time in the relationships with your clients, with your network. You nurture people, nurture relationships, not necessarily for any gain, but because it's part of the way that you approach people. Tell us about your kind of perspective on that. What makes you think like that? But then also, what do you do? How do you do it? Because that'll be useful for listeners who are perhaps trying to strengthen key relationships in their networks.
How do I do it? Wow. Well, one of the things I go into a great book. Is called The Go Giver. Okay, it's a book. It's about 180. Well, not even 180, but 140 pages long, by a guy called Bob Berg and John Mann, I think, wrote the book, the authors.
Yeah.
And it talks about going into conversations, relationships, anything that to build a relationship with the mindset of what I can give it rather than what I can take from it. And I feel, and I bear in mind, I come from a recruitment background for 20 years where everything is it can get very transactional. It can be about every conversation you have with your line manager, your director is, what did you get from that call? What did you get from that meeting? What did you get from that visit? What did you get from that exhibition, etc., etc. So it drives a mindset of every conversation I've got to go into, unless there's something in it for me, I'm not bothering. However, if you get a mindset of, I'm going to go into every conversation, every relationship about what I can give it rather than what I can take for it. It's amazing how relationships build and foster and get developed and nurtured along the lines. And some conversation I have, they may not come to anything, but I'm a firm believer. If one conversation leads to another conversation, leads to another conversation, you never know where it's going to end or where it's going to start or finish. So this not get too big to have conversations with people. We've all been through a journey where had the phone slammed down on us. We get another email from LinkedIn. We get someone else trying to sell us whatever is a product that we don't want. Let's be courteous to them. Actually, you know what? There's no need for rudeness. There's no need to go, oh no, you're the fifth call about today, blah, blah. If it might be, just say, look, it's not the right time. How about we try in 3 weeks' time?
Yeah.
But by giving back to the community, and that sounds a bit fluffy, but actually by giving back, and time is a commodity that we can give, but it's also the most precious thing we've got is time. It's a thing we can give other people. And we're all busy, so we've all got busy lives, but actually by setting aside an element of time, which I do every week, is like, who am I going to speak to this week? How am I going to keep nurturing those relationships, building, but also going from it? What can I offer them? What can I give them? And it's ironically, things do come back to you when you have that mindset of giving rather than receiving.
It's almost like, it's interesting. I'm rereading a book that I picked up from a hotel in Thailand. It was a gift to everyone who stayed in the hotel in Thailand when I was on holiday a few years ago. And it's a book about Zen Buddhism. And interestingly, the chapter I'm on at the moment is talking about karma.
Mhm.
And you know what you put out comes back at you. And it's interesting because it just, as you were talking about that, Gary, it's just reminded me of that chapter on karma. That, and I'm not you know, deeply religious or spiritual particularly, but actually sometimes you can recognize there's no downside to that approach. You feel good about yourself giving people time. You feel good sharing your experiences. As you say, not every opportunity comes to fruition. That's life, right? That's sales, you know. But actually, if you can do it in a way that is authentic, that serves your customer, serves your network, actually your reputation improves as well, doesn't it? You become someone that people respect and want to spend time with, and are happy then to, you know, refer on to other people.
Yeah, and in sales can be very competitive. So, but if someone comes to us and says, I'm looking for a job, or I'm a director at an organization, I'm looking for a job or a new career path steps, if I can't help them, then we put them onto someone else who can help them.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that I've now got that person to myself, that I'm not, just because I can't help them, tough. So it's reach out to other people. So actually it's the individual that gets helped along the way. And maybe they'll remember that, maybe they won't, but it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. Actually, it's about, let's help each other to get where we want to go. And that sort of, that karma, I suppose that's maybe the right word, karma, that it will come back to us eventually. However, I'm going to caveat that I truly understand that in the heat of the battle, when you're up against your quarterly targets or your monthly targets, and you are scrabbling around like well, whatever I was going to say then, I can't remember what I was going to say then. You're scrabbling around for your next sale or to get your budget over line, etc., and you've got your director or your business development director on your shoulder going, where's the sales coming? I truly get that. However, this goes back to, it's a human to human process, and actually this humanize it rather than numbers and data it.
Yeah, and I've found actually in those situations where you have got to hit your target, once you've fostered those, you know, more meaningful relationships with people, when you do need a customer to help you out, look, you know, I could really do with, you know, your commitment on this one at this time, you're much more likely to get a positive response than if you are someone that is seen as transactional, just trying to close deals. So it kind of helps you in those moments where you might need to call in a favor, or call in, you know, just a bit of commitment from a customer, or even you know, refer on to another opportunity or some support. So it does, what you're talking about actually fosters some support through your sales cycle as well, I think. But let's talk about your experience, Gary, of growing sales. What have you experienced, you know, throughout your career so far? Kind of key things that have helped you to really grow businesses, grow sales.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm someone who started my career as a pastry chef. My working life as a pastry chef. So I trained as a chef, done high level patisserie and whatever. And then at 27, 28, got into sales. So I started quite late. But I always had that thing, I could talk to people and get on with people. I was that sort of people person ultimately. So I started very late, and when I went into my first job in recruitment, basically was, there's a phone, there's a database that's not been looked at for God knows how long. Ring through 100 calls of those a day, 50 in the morning, 50 in the afternoon, and
100 a day,
literally, and that was it. Literally, right, bang. My training was on the desk. My then manager, who was also, he's a good friend of mine now, a guy called Saul Philpott, sat down with me probably for 3 days, just shadowed me for 3 days, and that was it. Off you go, Gary. On to the journey of trying to nurture yourself as a recruitment consultant. And at the time, I didn't know how to pick the phone up. I didn't know how to use a computer. I didn't know what a sales process was. I didn't even know what an engineer was, and I was recruiting engineers. I didn't know anything really. And so that was a real sort of baptism of fire. But what I did learn early on is to listen to other people who are a few years above me or a few years ahead of me in their career path.
Yes.
And by learning from other people and listening to them, you take some of the good stuff from them, and leave this not so good stuff behind. So I'm a firm believer in that. Never be afraid to continually learning and developing and being something that you were better at today than you were yesterday. And whether that's by getting mentors, getting other people, speaking to the likes of yourself, reading books, listening to podcasts, trying new things. I feel that actually building that thing is build a sales process. But however, you asked my question, how do we build sales teams and that success? So at TXM, for instance, so when I left short term, that was a very successful business. We started TXM in 2006, 2005. Two guys, Kieran and Lawrence, invited me to the table. There was only 4 of them, and we've now grown that business to 300 consultants internationally. So we've made the mistakes, we've made the good stuff, etc., etc. So how do we grow sales teams? He's working on a process. I think he actually that my training wasn't the right training, which is obviously not the right way to do it. However, I think there's to be good at sales. I think the misconception, I think we're going to cover that later, but the misconception, you've got to be a great talker. That's nonsense. You've got to be a great listener. Yeah. And actually to grow better sales, to grow a better sales pipeline, you've got to ask better questions. So learn how to ask better questions, rather than continue to think you've got to talk someone to death and you'll talk them into submission like a cornered rat, and eventually I'll have you you're a bloody product. I don't want to get you, but eventually they'll go somewhere else, or they'll sign the waiver that actually I didn't really agree to this or whatever. So by asking relevant questions and going through the sales process with someone, and just having conversation, and we're not going to convert every single lead, every single person to where we want them to go. Not every single person is going to buy our products. And I think sometimes that's what we have to understand. You can't talk someone to death and hope that they're going to get their checkbook out and go, or not a checkbook anymore, PayPal or whatever, and sign a check for you. So building teams, I think fundamentally all comes down to people. We said that earlier about human factor. And I'm a firm believer we work on with people is about attitude rather than IQ. I don't really care whether you come from apprentice background, no qualifications, no A levels, etc., or you went to the highest university in the world. I don't care. It's about your attitude, about willing to get out of bed every morning, coming to work and show up with enthusiasm, that energy, and that presence to go, I'm ready for work again today. Yeah. And I think that comes from the leadership teams as well. So leaders have got to come into work with, and whether they've had the worst argument ever with their partners on the way into work, or they're falling out the kids, or they've nearly crashed their car into work. As soon as they come through that door, it's bang, I'm ready for work. I'm showing up to be present within this environment. I'm going to lead from the front in terms of through energy, discipline, etc., etc.
Yeah, and because that's so important, because it's contagious, isn't it? Your attitude is contagious. If you're in sales and you're with a customer, your attitude is contagious. If you're a leader leading a team, sales team, business team, whatever, the attitude you bring to your work is contagious amongst your colleagues. So you have to really think about the way that you prime yourself and be ready to perform at any point in time. And as you say, we're all human, so it's not always easy. There's other stuff going on in our lives, but being able to, there's a great, I don't know if have you read High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard?
No.
That's a really interesting book, actually. There's a number of different kind of principles he talks about for high performance, but one of the techniques he talks about is a technique called transitioning.
Right, okay.
So that between different exercises or activities that you're doing throughout a day, that you take a moment to transition. So, before you go to work, going from, for me, just in at home to just in at work, there's a transition that has to take place. So actually spending a bit of time, literally a couple of minutes, priming yourself ready for that next key activity. I also find it useful if I've been doing, if I've been writing presentations and then I need to go into a session where I'm delivering a workshop, I have to be in 2 completely different frames of mind to be able to do those 2 activities. So sometimes you have to spend a bit of time just it's like priming yourself to transition from one type of work to another. And often that's from, who you are at home to who you need to be at work. And then the reverse is true, right? When you finish your day at work, you don't want to take, I don't want to take Coach Justin into my personal life, because people find that unbearing or unbearable. So you do have to make these transitions as you go from one activity to another. It's important that you learn to manage yourself.
Yeah, and actually working from home, I go into the office sometimes, but I'm in London most weeks, but actually working from home through this platform, Zoom or Teams or whatever.
Yeah.
What I do is it's all about transition. I've not heard that train of thought before, but between calls or just before meeting, I'll do 10, 15 press-ups. I think it energizes me, gets me into a state of I'm ready. Because you can sit here, go, you're doing some meetings, etc., whatever. But actually, that transition from one to another, I just do 10, 15 press-ups. Bang! It gets me energized for the next call and the next session as well. So that makes sense. That transitioning, yeah.
I wondered why you were puffing and panting every time I had a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what you think. Yeah.
Showing off your guns. You're going to end up looking like the Incredible Hulk, Gary. You know that, don't you?
Yeah. Cut down on meetings. That's what you have to do.
That's what it is. Yeah. Cut down on meetings. So when you think about, whether it's your approach to growth, when you think about TXM, what do you think is unique about the way that you're doing it, Gary? Because we're all different, right? We all have ways that we think about things.
Well, God, blimey, what's unique about that? I'm not sure I do anything unique, Justin. What I look at is if I had this thirst for knowledge and personal development 20 years ago, I'd be a far better than I am today. I'm doing okay, but if I had this first I've got for knowledge, I mean, I've got books everywhere. Look, as you can see in the background, literally, it's like a bloody library here. Amazon delivery man must love me at the moment, because everywhere someone recommends a book to me, bang, I've got it. But I have this thirst for knowledge now, and that personal development that I probably didn't have at the very beginning of my career.
Yeah.
And I did to a certain degree, because I said earlier, I had that intuitive thing about listening to other people and taking their best things. So I probably hammered it, but actually, the last 5 to 7 years, I've really immersed myself in that learning, getting better, be better than I was yesterday. And I think there's an element in the sales process as well that we start believing our own press. We make a few good deals, we have a few good a month or a quarter or a year, etc. And then what we do is go, yeah, I've made it. Yeah. The new car comes in the drive and whatever. But we don't look, and then things start to slip, and then we start not understanding why they're slipping. The reason why is because we're not doing the fundamentals of what we did before. And it's about basics. It's about hard work, having fun, and actually that sort of being humble enough to continue, keep showing up, having them conversation, be humble enough to continue learning from other people and things like that. Whether that's unique, I don't know, but I think that's what's probably got me to a certain degree where I am today, really.
Yeah, that's really good advice, actually, because as you say, there's that whole forgetting what got us to where we are today, isn't there? You put the fundamentals in place, you do the groundwork, and then as you evolve, as your experience evolves, you kind of forget what got you there. And also part of what got you there was the fact that you were open to new ideas, you were continually learning and developing. And if you start to turn off that kind of view or that perspective, you can start to stagnate without even realizing it. I must admit, I've had periods in my career where I've gone through, sharp, steep learning curves. And then I've had periods where, everything settles, you kind of feel like you've finally got a handle on things, and then you plateau for a bit. And there's that question about, what's happening in those moments. And actually the common denominator, I think, if I reflect on my own experience, the common denominator is I've stopped prioritizing my own growth and development, and I've just lost sight of a few of the fundamental things that got me to be successful in the first place. It's a really interesting way to reflect on it, Gary. And have you found that you've drifted off in the past and had to kind of almost refocus on key areas? Has it happened to you as well?
Yeah, all the time. We all get carried away over our own press sometimes and think, actually, and you start slipping into older habits or no habits whatsoever. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a sporting analogy, but success leaves clues. So actually, I think also if you're going for a little bit of a bad patch, think about when you were doing well, and what drove that success or that uplift in your sales process. Because it won't be there, it'll be the stuff you've done 6 months previously that got you the success 6 months forward or 12 months forward.
Yeah.
Because the sales process, unless most industries, it's not a quick fix. It's not, you're not selling double glazing and things like that. We're selling a product or even recruitment. I mean, some of the solutions that we offer take months, even years to get into a position where we're actually earning revenue from it. So think about what actually you were doing 6 months ago, how you were showing up for work, what you were doing. Maybe you were making more calls then. Maybe you were making more outbound emails. Maybe you were going to visit more people. Maybe you were getting out of your desk. And back to that human to human thing I talk about is this thing here is not going to generate you enough sales. You need to get out off your seat and go and meet people, visit them, say hello, shake their hand, say hello. And the whole thing is you can't build relationships over an email. You can't do it. My personal opinion, you can't. There will be very transactional relationships, but if you want long-term sustainable relationships, you need to get out your car, on your bike, on the bus, on the train, and go and meet people and see them and spend time with them and develop and understand their wants, needs, and desires. And that will breed success, because success does breed success.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so I suppose what we're talking about is a bit of complacency, aren't we? Yeah. Complacency does start to set in, whether we want it to or not, unless we are, acutely aware of what we're doing on a regular basis. We have a really tight plan. We have accountability. I think it's one of the great things about, working with, we've both been through coaching programs, Gary. So a great thing about going through not only a coaching program, but working with coaches or working with someone in your organization, like a peer, for accountability. I'm not a fan of you having to be accountable to your boss or your line manager, because that feels too forced. But when you can lean into proactive accountability, you have someone else that you're working with, whether that is a coach, a mentor, or a peer, and you start to constructively and positively challenge each other to be accountable for progress, there's a real shift in your mindset takes place. You become the person that wants to be held accountable. And when you're not living up to your own standards, having someone help you almost hold the mirror up and say, actually, is this the person that you want to be? Are you delivering at the level you're capable of delivering at? And that can be really valuable, but it's also tough, because sometimes you might have to accept some truths about yourself that you're not where you want to be, but that gap is what inspires you at times to get better and improve.
Yeah, and I think that comes back to humility. You'll be humble enough to know that the people you've got around you are there, and if they're not, you need to change the people. But if the people around you got on your own personal board, so who's on your? I always look at it. So who's on my board? Who's my board? My personal board of directors who hold me to account. Who go, you're acting like a dick, Gary. You're getting you're getting above your station, etc. Or you know what? Actually, you're not doing what you were doing 12 months ago. That could be whether it's your health, whether it's your wealth, whether it's finance, whether it's family time, whatever. But actually, who are your personal board of directors who hold you accountable? And I'm also another saying, very firm believer, is you do become the people that you mix with. And I think if I can swear on it, if you hang around with shit, you soon become shit. And so ironically, when you hang around with another 5 relatively successful people or positive people with views, guess who's going to be the 6th person? Ultimately. You are the substance of your environment sometimes, and you may not know it as well. So the people you hung around with when you were coming through school that are still your mates, the ones that you want to strive to go further, get better things, be better, be more professional, learn and development, and they're the ones who don't want you to do it, and they still want to go to the pub every single night, etc. And when you come into work, you feel hungover, so you're showing up to work 50% like instead of 100%. then you need to look at that sometimes. Look about who's on your personal board of directors and go, are they doing me any good? And I'm not saying you throw away your mates, but actually you maybe limit the time with them during the week when you have to focus on what's in front of you the next day.
Yeah. I like I've heard the term, you become the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
And it's like that. You can't help it. It happens almost by osmosis, doesn't it? Their ideas and beliefs blend into yours. I love the idea of your personal board of directors. Who's in your personal board of directors? And then thinking about key parts of your life. Yeah, your relationships, your home life, your work life, your career, your professional development, your health and fitness. Maybe it's your hobbies and activities, the things that you love to do. Yeah. Just kind of picking some of those key areas in life and just examining the people that you're spending time with and the investments that you're making, and are they delivering what you want them to? It's really, I mean, that's way beyond just I know we're talking about sales here. That's way beyond sales, but it's going to help you in every element of your life. And we both, I know you started as a pastry chef, as you said, Gary. I started as a technician, so like bit engineering, perhaps not as fancy as engineering, but I was a technician in a laboratory. And then like you, I preferred communicating with people and seeing them. And then I went into sales. But interestingly, the thing that I went from sales, like you, sales, leadership, business leadership, coaching. Yeah. But the thing that enabled me to do that was, spending time with the right people who had bigger ideas, higher aspirations, making those investments in myself and starting to develop myself and think, actually, what do I want for my future? What are the changes I want to see? And then starting to take action and progress, and step by step, so that you start to make those changes possible. And I still love, I know you do too, I love relationships. I like sales. I still like going into sales conversations. And some people have this negative association with sales, but I think, there's a number of things you've said today. If you can get your association with sales right, building relationships, it's about human to human. It's about seeing how you can help and give to people, rather than just always feeling as if it's a transaction you're trying to take from them. There's a lot of components to being successful in sales that, for a lot of people, if they understood it more holistically, perhaps would enjoy the sales role and see it as more of a career and an aspiration for them.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of the word sales gets a bit of a bad term as well. Maybe we should reframe it about, I don't know how we reframe it. Maybe it's how we give value. I give value back to my clients. I don't know really whether that's the right, but sales is can be seen a bit of a, I don't know, car salesman, but actually they do a great job as well, some of them as well, and so do recruiters, so do double glazing salespeople, so do estate agents, etc., all the ones that we talk about. But it is a profession, and actually, if you think about it, sales as a profession. If you were an accountant, you will continually be developing yourself as an accountant. If you're a solicitor, it's a continue being a better solicitor, because you have to, because things change all the time. Yeah. If you're a sports person, play football, golf, tennis, whatever that may be, the better you become. You don't do less of what you've done before. You do more of it. So, like Sir Johnny Wilkinson, Jason Robinson, who's a personal friend of mine, but also he's our ambassador at TXM, talks about when he won the World Cup in 2003, Clive Woodward broke every element of their thing down into how they got better at each individual thing. So Johnny would practice with, Jason would practice with Johnny to become a better kicker. And then Johnny would practice with Jason, so he become a better one, so he can run, how he sort of slide tackle, etc., etc. So sports people and other people don't come off the pedal when they become successful. They put the pedal back on and actually become even better. So they then get more coaches around them, because they want to get even better and learn from other people. And I think sales profession, sometimes they start getting a bit high in their own press to a certain degree and start thinking, oh, I've got a car, I've got a new house, etc. They've had a bit of relative success, and then don't feel that to continue that learning, development and process. And that, what I said earlier about never be afraid to continually developing and learning from other people, whether that's other people on podcasts, face to face like yourself, or books or whatever. I think it's real. I think it's the biggest misconception in sales is that I'm brilliant at sales. Well, actually, you could be better just if you spent a little bit more time with the right people and the right environment.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, don't believe your own PR, because you're right. Actually, there's something that happens. I've heard Tony Robbins talk about it. It's like it's almost like, you know how a thermostat in a house, you set your thermostat to like 22 degrees, right?
Yeah.
And then the temperature gets up to 22 degrees. As soon as it hits 22, the thermostat kicks in and everything drops off and it starts to reduce again.
Yeah.
Sometimes success is a bit like that. You get to a certain point where you've kind of found something that works, you get going, you put in the work, you achieve a level of success. And as you say, the very best, whether it's in sports or in different professions, actually what they do then, they realize that's the time to lean in further, get even better. Go back to some of the fundamentals. Just make sure that there's a quote I love. I can't remember who said it, but it's don't practice so that you win. Practice so that you can't lose.
Yeah,
right?
I love that. Yeah.
Practice so you cannot lose. It's so automatic. It's so natural for you that you're guaranteed to keep winning and succeeding. And that's the difference, I think, between people who do okay, reach a certain level of performance, and those who absolutely get to the top, like Jason, like Johnny Woodward, like Johnny, like Clive Woodward. Actually that's a mindset. It's also about reconditioning yourself to not, I love your analogy, Gary, don't take your foot off the gas at those points. Keep your foot on the pedal. Keep leaning into it. Really, really important distinction. Yeah, I love that. I love that. So Gary, if you had to kind of go back to the younger Gary and kind of give yourself some advice, what advice would you give young Gary? He's finished as a pastry chef, he's just starting out, maybe 27, 28. What advice would you give to young Gary?
Oh wow. Well, I think I probably I've said it really, but that continual learning and developing yourself is of paramount importance, in my opinion. And be careful who you mix with. Be careful who's in your environment. And what I would tell myself back then is actually it's all going to be all right, because actually we have ups and downs. We've had ups and downs at TXM. We nearly lost the business back in 2010 through bad debt, etc., etc.
Wow.
And we come through the other side. Through some good judgment from various people. And that's when you realise that actually you want this more than you don't want it. So when you're willing to take the sacrifices, and whether that's salary sacrifices, home sacrifices, etc., not go to the pub, not go and watch football, not walk out the office at 5:30, they are the things that the sacrifice. And I think actually, so back to where you said, is it will be all right as long as you put the work in. You got to put. There's a bit of a thing at the moment around work-life balance, etc., etc. I get that. However, I can't tell you one person that has been successful, whatever that looks like, without hard work. And then if you put hard work and the process around it, a structure of learning, development, building networks, mix with the right people, but fundamentally it comes down to hard work. Are you willing to go to work, do more hours than anyone else? I'm an average salesperson. I'm probably average at everything. However, what I am good at is hard work. My thing is also, there's another, I know we're quite full of quotes and phrases, but be humble, but be the hardest working person in the room. And that probably, I only saw that a few years ago, but that's probably me, in one sentence. Yeah. I've always been ultimately the hardest working person in the room. But I've always done it with humility. Probably comes back to my background from my mum and dad. So yeah. Yeah, it's a good reminder to people, because people listening to this podcast, and they're listening in, one, for some structure and, some advice, but also sometimes you just need to hear almost life advice, don't you, about how you operate. It's not just about the sales process, the relationships. It's also your own philosophy on life can be really important, and hearing what other people have experienced. I'd say the same.
I never felt particularly naturally talented. I felt I had to work at it. You know, I could talk to people, but sometimes, you know, you do have to just put in the hours. You have to put in the work, don't you? As well as being good at what you do, you have to put in the work. And I think that's an important message that sometimes can get lost, you know, because there's so many, you know, I don't know if you call them get rich quick schemes, but there are lots of, you know, just do these 2 or 3 things, enroll on my course, do this, and it'll all change. And it's not always the, you know, whatever you're doing takes hard work, and you're going to have to put in some real effort to get the results that you want if you want to succeed.
Yeah, and ultimately you can. I think there's a few ways to earn money, isn't there? You can steal it, you can win it, or you can work for it. And I'm not really going to go and start stealing money. And I don't do the lottery, so I'm not going to win it. So I've got to work damn hard to get it. So that's my philosophy on life, really.
Yeah, you know, I'm the same. I don't play the lottery. Perhaps
No.
I should have done.
Yeah,
and I'm not into stealing either. So yeah, I'm with you, Gary. I'm on the work bus, right? We got to work to achieve it. I like that. Really like it.
Exactly.
Really like it.
Yeah.
Gary, final question for you. What if you think about, you know, right now the economy's in a difficult place, right, for a lot of people. And when the economy tends to have an impact on certain markets, not all markets, some businesses are still thriving, but some will be starting to find it tough. You talked about, you know, some of those tough periods that you've been through. What are the things you do to keep yourself kind of motivated, engaged, positive through those rougher, tougher periods?
So health and fitness is one. That's the de-stress for me. I run 3-4 days a week. If I can't run, I go to the gym. So then that's my release, my downtime as well.
Yeah.
So about 45 minutes, an hour maybe of, I might listen to a podcast, but generally actually I don't listen to anything, and it's just me, and that's my breathing space.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is that during downtimes, that's the time when you've got to really show the value in what you do. And I know we haven't all got crystal balls, but we do generally know when the tough times are coming a bit further out than we actually react to it.
Yeah.
So a lot of businesses, and this is not my saying, but I do love it, is that a lot of businesses, when we've gone for a really, really good time in terms of houses being 0 rate mortgages, etc. Most businesses have done really well in the last 5-10 years. We're going down into a little bit of a tricky time. That, I mean, you can, if you read the press too much, you can drive yourself into that position a lot quicker.
That's true. Yeah.
But I'm also this element, and I don't know where it comes from, but I love it, is that most businesses are set up for summer, not winter.
Yeah.
And that includes the sales process. So we build our businesses and our mentality and our pipelines around the summer when it's all great. We're like, yeah, we can turn out that work, etc. We won't go out and see them people, those clients, for that meeting and that coffee, because they haven't really got anything for us at the moment. We might not go to that beer with someone, or we might not go on that Zoom call because actually at that moment they haven't got anything for us anyway. However, this is the time when we start getting to a tricky moment, is when you start, if we talk about sports analogy, we get touch tight with your clients. These are the times when you show your true worth and your true value to your clients. Because when the good times happen again, hopefully, and I reckon they will, hopefully they will remember you when you saw them through the trickiest times, because they're going to go through it as well as you. But if you can go on into those conversations, like I said earlier, with a mindset, what can I give them? What value can I give them? Is it insight from a magazine or from another client I heard that they're doing particularly well? Or is it just you go there and you might, particularly if you're a coach, you give some coaching advice back, some coaching back free to them in a time when they may not be able to afford to be have a coach? Or is it, if you're selling a product, you go, actually, no, this product would work really well for you in 18 months' time. How about we develop that conversation, move it forward? But I'm during the bad times, remember that, but remember that build your business for winter, not summer, continually. And then remember the tough times, because they will come back. They might not come back for 5 years, but they will come back. But people do remember what you do. In the good times, when you turn down their work because you're a bit too busy, or they're not really paying the right margin, and all of a sudden when you get a tricky one, you know, that deal we wanted, oh yeah, we couldn't do it then, but we can now. Yeah, funny that. Yeah. So I would say build your pipeline, your business, your portfolio, even your individual connections for winter rather than summer. And I mean by that, you continue working to develop in the relationships even through the good times, because the winters will come, but you can get through the winters easier if you've done that.
Nice. Yeah. And you started that also, Gary, by saying look after yourself, physically, mentally, right?
Yeah.
Make those investments in yourself, keep the energy high.
Health is number one importance to me in my life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's ahead of my family and everything else, because I'm a firm believer without my health, without me, I'm useless to anyone. So it's of fundamental importance to me, health and then family. Yeah, no, I agree. Very good, Gary. Love it. Gary, it's been an exceptional conversation, as I would expect. Thank you so much for attending today. Thanks also for your friendship. As I say, I'm fortunate enough to call you a friend as well. Before we wrap up then, Gary, where can people find you? If people want to get in touch, either give you some feedback or connect with you, where's the best place to get in touch? On LinkedIn. So Gary Lincoln. I'm the TXM group at Gary Lincoln, or that's the main platform, or my email address is gary.lincoln@txmgroup.com.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gary. Yeah, LinkedIn's the place to get Gary. Also some very kind of insightful and entertaining posts, I have to say. I enjoy your post, Gary. So yeah, do look Gary up, give him a follow or a connection. I'm sure Gary would welcome contact from you as well. Gary, thanks so much. And look forward to seeing you, well, who knows, maybe on a future episode, but certainly seeing you personally. Thanks, Gary, and take care.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, mate. Bye.
Cheers. See you. Genuine thanks for listening to the Inspire Sales Podcast. We hope you enjoy learning some of the most cutting-edge sales techniques and getting close to some of the greatest sales leaders in the world now and in the future. If you'd like to explore further, please feel free to visit our website, focusforgrowth.co.uk. And if you'd like to take our Sales Acceleration Scorecard and discover your sales and influencing score, then check out the show notes for the link in the bio. If you have enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button. If you know people in your sales and leadership network that you think would like to listen to, then please share this episode with them. I'd be very grateful. If you'd like to get in touch with me, please feel free to do so. If you have suggestions for further guests, or if you'd like to appear yourself, please contact me or my team. You can connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. My social profiles are in the show notes, and I look forward to being with you on the next episode. Thanks again for listening. See you soon.